taking a summer break, man. Like, it just happens. I mean,
yeah, we did.
We keep talking about like, hey, we gotta get in and record a podcast, but it's summer. I mean, it's summer, and in Minnesota,
it's summer.
You gotta enjoy it a little bit. You just have
right.
to, and it just happens.
Yeah.
And so, we're busy.
Yeah, I mean, between trips that you've had to take and things that I've had to do, it's just we I don't know if we need to apologize, but we do. We do want to get back into going these podcasts and all that kind of stuff. But to be honest with you, yeah, it's been actually kind of nice to get back and focus on some other things in our lives. And so, we took a little break. All right.
So we took a break, but we're back. We're getting back again. And, and honestly, it's fine, right? I mean, in the end, it's good. It's good to take some time to kind of reflect and figure out what we're doing. It's Father's Day tomorrow. You're a father. I'm a father. So people that are watching this, it'll probably be like yesterday or a couple days ago. So they've had Father's Day, had a chance. And so we just wanted to talk about being a father a little bit, right? And kind of reflect on that and, and see where it takes us. So we have a bunch of stuff coming up, which is one of the reasons why we haven't been able to record is because we do have things that we're doing, right? So it's not that we've just completely checked out.
Right.
Monday nights we're doing Adventuring Warriors, which is a men's group at Substance Church at the main building, Substance Building Monday nights. I'll put the information on our website for people that want to check that out.
It's every other Monday.
Every other Monday, yep. And so it'll be the Monday after Father's Day and then every 2 weeks. But I'll put the dates out there for everybody to go look. Everyone's welcome to join us. Guys are welcome to join us. Sorry, ladies that may watch, but you can't come. Start your own group. But any guys welcome. You don't have to go to Substance. You can come hang out. It's been really good. We've had one so far, so it's not like we're too deep into the series. People can join in. So that's Mondays, Tuesdays,
and we're talking. Just so you know, if we're basically bringing up how we can fight for freedom in a lot of areas of our life.
Right.
And we're basing it off of scripture, but I'm using clips from the movie Braveheart, which is my favorite movie. So anyway, so if you're feeling stuck or whatever, you're for sure going to want to come to those classes because you're going to get freedom through them for sure. So that's good. But,
so that's Monday nights. Tuesdays we've been doing a Compass class, which is great. We have like the Bible study that's in Stillwater every other Wednesday that's going on, right? That I haven't been going to myself because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is a little bit hard.
Yeah.
But if guys want to do stuff, we're giving a lot of opportunities for guys to do stuff, and then we're planning Basic again. So the Wild at Heart Basic Retreat, which is a 4-day retreat, technology free, disconnect from the world, reconnect with your masculine soul.
In a beautiful camp.
Yep, out in Danbury. It'll be our first time there with a group of guys in summer. We've been with our leadership team, but not with a camp.
No, we just always enjoyed the mid-January 40 below ones for some reason.
Right. So this time we'll actually be able to swim instead of walk on the lake that we usually walk on. We'll be able to swim on. But it'll be interesting to see how basic here in the summertime. It'll be kind of cool. I'm excited for that, to do a summer basic. It's just something we haven't done. So that's on the website right now. Registration's open. I'll put the information for Monday nights on there. And I'll actually probably put the Wednesday night one too, because I don't have that on there too. That Sean's leading. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff. We've got a pile of ways for guys to dive in and just get connected, right? And that's what we're trying to continue to do, is just connect guys with community to help them out. So for fathers, which is what we want to talk about, and one of the things that I came to you with, and I have a 14 and a 17-year-old. Your son is older than that, so you've been through these ages, right? How old's Tyler?
Tyler's 33.
33. Okay, so you've been through the 14, 17-year-old age, or 14, 16. He's actually turned 17 in 2 weeks. I haven't. This is like my first time, and one of the things that
it's all of our first time. We go to
one of the things that I am coming to realize is that we think a lot of things are a big deal. When you're a parent and your kid does something, it always seems like it's this massive deal, right? Just anything, because you've never seen it before, other than when you did it. And frankly, one, there's a lot of things that my son has to deal with that I never did.
Right.
The amount of information, I can't even imagine. If I look back and go, okay, the things that my sons are able to know right now, I don't know that I knew years and years down the road,
right.
because they have all this information
right.
like at their fingertips.
Right.
And so it's amazing. And so everything feels so big, because you're going, man, did I know that when I was 16 years old? Did I think of those things? Did I feel those things? Did I experience those when I was 16? I don't know.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Well, what's interesting is you see nowadays with all the information, there's almost this demand to grow up.
Right. Fast.
Yeah. And it's to keep up and to grow up, and it's hurting the younger generation, because those that, and what you're seeing a lot now is that if they can't keep up with the trends and with everything like that, they will back away. Right. And they'll become secluded, and they'll whatever, because there's such a demand for you to know all these different things. And so it is. I think I agree with you. I mean, what I had to worry about when I was 15 years old was whether my flat tire was on my BMX bike so I could ride a Marine. I mean,
right.
And I had
to meet up with your friends that now, these guys have, they know exactly where they're from. My son can look up on his phone and pull up, an app, right, and see exactly where all of his friends are at any given time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Just to think about that.
Right.
You had to get on your BMX bike, pump up the tires, ride to the friend's house, right, hope he was there, right, find out he's not, he's at the other friend's house, so then you got to ride there, right? I mean, at best, you hope that maybe you can call and not get a busy signal because somebody else is on the other line.
Right, exactly, yeah. Because the phone's still cooked to the wall.
Yeah. And maybe find out if he's there, right? And at halftime, you'd get no, I don't know where he is from mom, and...
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's just I really believe it just wasn't as complicated.
Right.
I mean, it just wasn't as complicated. And like you say, for teenagers especially to navigate, they say teenagers are in the worst time of their life. Why? Because they're going through mental, physical, and spiritual changes all at the same time.
Right.
And you were one, I was one, and so, but with all these, with all these trends and all these new things that they follow, whether they're going to be popular or not popular, whether they're liked on Facebook.
Right.
If someone didn't like me when I was a kid, they say, I don't like you. I mean, it was very clear. I mean,
they had to literally come to your face and tell you.
Right.
Now you can not anonymously, but you can just they just tear into each other online. Adults do it. Just tear into each other online
or tear into someone that they don't even know.
Right.
I mean, it's so okay.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And those kind of things we didn't have to worry about. So as a dad, everything feels like, boy, if I don't get this right, I shouldn't say everything. It very often feels to me like if I don't get this right, I'm screwing up my kid for life, or I'm gonna jack things up, and then he's gonna have to, he's gonna have this wound that he's gonna have to fend off for how many years that he's gonna deal with this, and you just don't know what is a big deal and what isn't, because everything feels like a massive deal.
Anything that they do wrong.
I don't get this right. Problems. A lot of times. You see it as this problem.
Yeah. But what they do wrong is what you're trying to say is if they make a mistake or they mess up and they do something, it seems like a big deal.
Yeah. Right. Or if something, or if they have a big, graduating high school.
Yeah.
There's all these kids right now are graduating high school, right? And it's a big deal. Right. I mean, it's funny now looking back on high school. It felt like it was this massive accomplishment. Right? And they do these whole big, think about the ceremonies. You're wearing this funny hat and you've got a robe on. And then
didn't wear anything underneath it.
You put on a robe and you go and then somebody gives this grandiose speech where they're like, you've got your whole life in front of you and you can do anything. Right. And it's like, this was probably the easiest thing you will do for the rest of your life. The easiest accomplishment to tick the box off is graduating high school. It just gets worse from here.
Well,
accomplishments get harder. There's more consequences to not. You don't graduate high school. Guess what? You just do some more classes until you do.
Right.
it's not the end of the world.
Right.
Is it a bit? It's sure. I think it's. I don't want to say it's not important to graduate high school because I think it is.
Yeah.
But it's not the end of the world. And when you do, it's not like I have arrived. I am now 18. I'm a high school graduate, and I can do anything.
Right.
No, you can't.
Well, I mean, but it isn't the opposite either. You can't do nothing, and your life is going to suck for the rest of your life. I mean, it's talking about you're going to have to make mistakes, grow up, and mature. You're going to have to learn. You're going to have to grow. You're going to have to, so it isn't the exact opposite either.
No, you check the box. Good job. Way to make it.
You graduated. You made it. So the reality is what you're going to do with the rest of your life from what your first accomplishment per se.
Right.
That's probably one of your first educational accomplishments that you'll make in life. You're right. So now what's the next step? What's the next plan? Right. But yeah, so big deals. Yeah. So it feels, so again, if you're a parent and you're going down that road and your kid's not going the right direction, right.
Again, it feels like, and I think about this, when I went to basic training, I was older when I went, so 9/11 happened in 2001. And my brothers all were in the military. Two of my 3 brothers were in the military already. And I was just like, man, I felt like I needed to do something because I wasn't. And I was fully physically incapable. So I joined the military at that time. So I was older. I was like 27, 28 years old when I joined the Army. And again, to me, it was basic training was like a big deal, right? I mean, it really wasn't. First of all, it wasn't that hard. Wasn't that big of a deal. But what I found was this idea of like graduating. Everybody had this like, oh, you gotta graduate basic training, and all this stuff, and it was this pressure. And again, it felt like this massive deal. I watched kid after kid, like they would get in trouble and they would just start over again. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, it took longer, but. Everybody's all worried about, well, if you went to this, you're not going to graduate. Yeah, you are. Just 2 weeks later. Because all they're going to do is put you back there and make you do it over again.
Right.
So, this whole thing of making this massive deal out of things, a lot of times in the moment, it feels really big.
Yeah.
Then once you get there, it's like, it's not, I don't know how big of a deal it is. And so as a parent, I get, and again, so I'm just going to go by what I am experienced a parent, and listen, I am not. For everyone out there is like, well, who are you to talk about being a great? I'm not a perfect parent by any sense of the imagination. So I might not even be a good parent. I don't know, right? You have to ask my kids. I don't know. I don't have all the answers,
right?
Which is why we're having this conversation.
Because if you did have all the answers, you'd probably be a bad parent. So
there you go. Maybe
you'd expect your kid to have all the answers. So.
Right.
Anyways,
yeah. So in that vein, right, I'm looking for how the heck do I make it through the next, I've got my older son has a year left. My oldest son has a year left of high school. And then he starts the real life, right, as they call it. My youngest son has 4 years left. And so I'm trying to focus on the things that make sense. And I find myself focusing on all of these like landmark things, right? Like, son didn't go to prom. Is he ever going to get a girlfriend? Well, he's not going to get married. He's not going to have kids. And I'm not going to have grandkids. And this sucks because I want to have grandkids, right? And all this stuff. But I don't want to focus on those things because they're not really. What I'm finding is all of the things that when they were younger I thought were a big deal, they're just not. Half of them just aren't as you start to work your way down the road. Is it neat? Yeah. Is it an accomplishment in life sometimes to do some things? Sure. But is it the end of the world when things don't go the way you thought they were going to, or they go a different direction? Right. Most of the time, it's not. I mean, it just isn't that big of a deal. My oldest son was a really good wrestler, and he stopped wrestling. And I thought, oh my gosh, this sucks. He was really good. Listen, I work in wrestling. Like the top 8 best people in the world get paid to wrestle. No, in the United States, no one else does.
Right.
What was I thinking he was going to do?
Right.
I mean, did he learn a lot with wrestling? Where it's not going to be yes, he learned a lot. There's a lot of things that come with sports, I think, and not just wrestling, but other sports that give them a lot of things. But he still could learn those things in other areas.
Right.
So my job as a parent is not to freak out that he quit doing sports. it's to find a way that he can still learn those things that I want him to learn without it.
Right.
So here's one that there's some stats that I wrote down that I thought were interesting, right? That are centered around different areas of teenagers' life that I thought were kind of cool. So I'll just we'll throw some of these in and we can talk about romance, right? Big deal. Kids had Josiah, my son, has a girlfriend, and it's a bit like his life. Life revolves around the girl, right? Or the boy if you have girls, right? And they break up, and it's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to help him through this? This is such a big deal. It's all that, right? 2% of high school couples end up getting married.
Oh yeah, that's very, very small number.
2%. Yeah. So is it a big deal, really, if he breaks up with that girl, or is it inevitable?
But once again, in the moment, as a teenager, and you're dating someone, it is a massive deal. As a 16-year-old, and you're dating someone, and the breakup, it is a big deal. What I've seen lately is, that's different, I think. What I've seen lately is that they get so emotionally attached so quick that you could be dating for 3 weeks and it's a breakup and you want to end your life. And it's like, whoa, you don't even know this person yet, but it's amazing to me on how quickly it becomes such a big relationship. And that's one thing I don't think is a big deal. No, you're becoming a friend at that point in time. That's about it. You know what I mean?
But as dad, I think that it's important, right? It's important that we understand that is a big deal to them.
Yes.
So here's the balance that I think I'm trying to strike in this conversation is it's a big deal to them, but it's not a big deal really in the grand scheme of their life, right? So we have to skirt this line as dad of making sure that they understand, like, hey, I'm with you. I understand what you're going through. Have compassion and validate their feelings, right? But at the same time, not let it rule their life and teach them how to get through it. And that specifically applies, like you said, when the negative things happen, right? I mean, breaking up with a girlfriend, that's a negative thing, but something that they did wrong. Maybe, most for the most part, they didn't do anything wrong, right? It just happens. But when they do something wrong, right? When they drink, right? We're talking about drinking and doing drugs, right? Like when kids drink or they do drugs, I mean, it sucks. As a parent, you're like, man, like you were saying earlier, I know that where that took me, and I don't want to see that for my kid. But what's more important there? Right. What are we really trying to get them to do? Stop drinking?
I think that's once again, it's that when we talked about it in the Compass class, that sanctified behavior modification. We, as parents, especially if we have a bad past like I had, a horrible past and just did a lot of stupid things. As parents, right away, we put that on them to try to protect them from doing the same mistakes we have, right? Which actually can go against it. It can actually turn it to actually move them towards it even more than it would be to not. Because why? Because we're making up stories in our head. I mean, okay, they had a drink. Okay, they're alcoholics now, or they're on their way down the tube like I did. Being at the bar 5 days a week. No, no, they're a teenager and they tried it. And especially Christian parents get bent out of shape at some of the smallest little things. He smoked a cigarette. Okay, he smoked a cigarette. But I think the big shift that happens from 0 to 10, 12 is, you can correct your children at those ages. But when you get into the 13 and teenagers, now it's more trying to understand what caused them to drink.
Right.
Was it peer pressure? Did you talk to him about that, or you just get on about, I can't believe I heard you drank at the, what's wrong with you? Do you even know Jesus?
Right.
I mean, that is trying to repair the behavior. When as teenagers, a parent needs to be trying to understand what's their belief system that's causing that behavior. What's going on inside them that felt like, because it could just have been peer pressure. Maybe it was 3 friends, really good friends of his, that decided to have a beer, and so he did too.
Maybe you want to know how it tastes.
Yeah, maybe you want to know how it tastes.
Right.
Right. And so, is your relationship with your teenager to the point of where you could have a conversation about it?
Right.
He will talk to you about it. Or is your relationship with your teenager one where you're just constantly being corrected And so he shuts down, doesn't want to say anything to you because all you're going to do is discipline him for it. You know,
right.
That's two different.
And it seems like as parents, we go like one of two different roads there, right? You either try to be like their best friend.
Yeah.
Because you think that then they're going to, because they talk to their best friends. Right. So you're like, hey, I'm just your buddy. Yeah. Right. You and me, we're just friends.
Then you lose the authority.
Right. Or you try to be the helicopter parent or disciplinarian, right? Where I'm not your friend. I'm your dad.
Right.
Right.
You do what I say. Right.
Right. Yeah. Don't have to understand what I'm saying. You just have to do it.
Right.
And it's like, that seems to be, you go those two directions where the reality is that as parents, we need to be like trying to fire down the middle somewhere.
Most teenagers most teenagers, I believe, they just want to know that you're with them. Mm-hmm. They don't want to be corrected anymore. They don't want to be told anymore, even though we still need to do some telling. But they because why? Because they're going through the worst time of life, spiritually, mentally, physically. They're going, do I believe like my parents believe? Mm-hmm. I don't know if I do anymore.
Right.
And some parents are out there going, just shudder, like, oh my gosh, what do you mean you don't believe in God? Here's the thing that I've told multiple parents as a youth pastor, is there's this claim that the colleges are stealing our children's Christianity, stealing their faith. Listen, colleges don't steal their faith. If they get stolen, they never had it in the first place.
Right.
They were living off the parents' faith.
Right.
It's just not that easy. A teacher in philosophy it's not that easy to steal someone's faith in Christ. Mm-hmm. The Bible says once you have that experience, nothing can change that. Right. It's impossible almost. It says in other scriptures. So the reality is, it's trying to discover their hearts on why they've done that or why they've made that mistake, and having a relationship that's close enough to where they'll be open and tell you, right? And that takes time. That takes understanding. That doesn't mean correcting them all the time. That means like maybe sharing a time when you messed up in the same manner, right? So they go, oh my gosh, he's with me, not against me.
And it really means too, like being there when they're ready to talk, not trying to force those times, right? That's one of the things that I think I'm really working hard to try to be better at. For me is not, we need to talk about this,
right?
No, we have time right now. We need to talk about it.
Right.
That's very seldomly does that work.
No, it doesn't work. And then what I did was being so critical. We need to talk about it. And then they finally would give in and talk. Then I would get mad for what they were saying.
Right. Yeah. Right. How dare you be so,
I just took 30 minutes of saying, you need to talk, we need to talk. And then when they did share their heart, I'd be like, that's stupid. Why do you feel that way? Well, why would anybody want to talk to me?
Right.
I mean, why would especially a teenager want to talk to me? It's just crazy.
Yeah.
But the reality, once again, the reality is that they're looking for someone that's going to do life with them, not tell them how to do life. Sure. At that age, that's what they're looking for. Why do you think gangs? Why do you think getting around the wrong crowd? Why? Because that's what brings that.
In sports, even. I mean, when all the kids that do sports, the big thing is being around other kids. Even, Josiah, who doesn't do sports anymore, one of the things that he says to me is, I miss being around. That's the one thing I miss, is being around all the guys.
It becomes kind of like a family.
Right. Because and it's again, being there when they're ready to talk is important, and listening, like you were saying, instead of just being critical, right? Yeah. And I think that another big thing that I'm trying to work on is sometimes not responding.
Yeah. That's so hard, isn't it?
It's really hard. One, because you feel like maybe they're looking for me to give them answers, but they're not.
No.
And even sometimes when they say, I just want you to tell me what to do here. And then you do, and then they go, well, I can't do that.
Right.
Then you didn't want me to tell you what to do, really?
Well, actually, I think there's a different spectrum there. I think we react as a teenager a lot towards a teenager, but a teenager's reaction to that, I think, is a typical teenager. In other words, what I'm saying is that when they ask advice and you give them advice, I still think they want it.
Sure. Okay.
But they just don't know how to receive it. They don't know how to accept it because it bounces against all these other things that are going on in their head, right? And so if they ask you for it and you give it to them and they fight you on it, I still think in their heart, if they ask, I still think in their heart you've got a relationship there where they truly want to know. They may not receive it well, but I still think that's planting a seed. That's sowing a seed,
Sure. Somebody said to me that, I think maybe even you know, like, even if they don't like it, they still heard it.
Yes, 100%. Oh, I can't tell you how many times as my kids became adults and got older, how many times they told me that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you said this to me a million times. I know you didn't think I heard it, but I did. You know, but once again, they can't receive it in the brain that they got going on, especially if it sounds something disciplinary or something that they need to change about a relationship that they're having with friends, or
Right.
you know,
Right.
they're just not willing to take it in. But you planted it because they asked. I mean, to me, if a teenager asks you, that's a great relationship right there.
Sure. Okay. That's
It's
good.
when they don't
Good
talk
benchmark.
to you.
Right.
It's when they don't share anything with you, when they don't ask advice. In fact, I was so critical,
Mm-hmm.
and Carrie was too, for a long period of time in my kids' lives, that we literally promised each other that we wouldn't respond, like you said. And it was 2 years.
It's hard.
I remember almost exactly 2 years of not responding to our kids with advice or anything.
Sure.
And also, I'll never forget sitting out on my back porch and with I think it was Tyler or Jackie, and he was telling me about a situation he's going through, and he said, "What do you think?" And I went, like, really? I was like, really? You want me to tell you? He's like, yeah, Dad, of course I do it. And I'm like, ah! And so I shared it. It went great. But before that, it was just, because we feel the need to correct. We feel the need to respond. We feel the need to fix. And those are all the things that we have to step back, let God do the work in the hearts. All we need to do is capture the relationship and let God do the speaking into their hearts, you know?
And the relationship is that to me is the important part, right? So Larry Hagner, who's an author and he has a podcast, right? He was saying, I said this to you earlier, that, you know, we focus so much on the problem.
Yeah.
And but really we should be focusing on the relationship, right? Yeah. So your kid comes to you with a problem and we immediately want to focus on that versus what do I want this relationship between him and I to look like 3 months from now? That's how he puts it. Yeah. And every time he says that, I just go, oh my gosh, you know, that's such a good way of thinking about that, because you can give him the answer right now and they might even take it. You know, well, hey, thanks for that. That doesn't mean they're going to do it. Right. That doesn't mean they're going to listen.
Right.
But if you focus on that relationship 3 months from now, like, what do I want it to look like? Yeah. And then you're intentional of doing those things. Yeah. Man, there's so many. You can cover a lot of things that you're solving. Again, we're going back to, instead of fixing the behavior,
right,
or you're fixing the core values. Yeah. And that's going to, that emanates to all the behaviors, not just the one that you're working on right now.
Right. Instead of sanctified
behavior modification,
which we all do. You know, it's the wrong battle. You can't fix your behavior by working on your behavior.
Right.
It's the same with your kids. You got to fix your behavior by working on the heart, or the belief system that affects the values, which affects the behavior. And so that's why I was going to say, you know, when you say, you know, you can't just say, you know, we need to talk about this now. The fun thing about, and I wish I would have did more of this as a parent, but the fun thing about what you could do is you can create an atmosphere to be able to do that.
That's exactly it.
Right. Yep. Kind of like what that guy was saying, you know, so you don't have to fix it right away, but maybe you can, next week, you can envision something 2 to 3 weeks from now to get their hearts in a place to receive.
Right.
You know, which maybe take them out bowling if they like bowling, or whatever the case may be, creating the atmosphere for those conversations.
And this is what I've been doing with my sons, and if they watch this now, they're going to figure out my schemes. But, you know, what I've been doing with them, I'm pretty sure they don't watch the podcast. They do. They get a lot of good info. It's if you know, is I know what they like to do. Yeah. I know. I mean, I know what my kids like to do, and so I'll create opportunities to do things that I know they like to do. Yep. That then when they're doing that, it opens up time for conversation, because 100%. They are more willing to engage because I'm engaging in what they like to do. And sometimes it's not easy. You got to like force yourself to do some stuff that, you know, you're like, this is teenager kind of stuff, you know, and you're busy. We were just talking about earlier, we're busy, but what's more important, right?
Exactly.
It's taking the time. I mean, I really feel like my kids my kids know, and I can say this with confidence, and this is not something that I could say 3 years ago. Okay, so that's how new this is my kids know that they could call me at any time And if they said, sorry about that, they could call me at any time, and if they said, I need you to do something, I would drop whatever I'm doing, work. I've literally been in meetings and just been like, hey, I gotta go. And left and gone to, something that my kids find super important to go and do that. And not to say that you have to do that, right? I don't think that's, your world doesn't need to revolve around your kids, but they have to know you're willing to do that.
Right.
Because if they know you're willing to do that, if they know you're willing to do that, they're not going to ask you to all the time, unless it's important. Because the kids know, like, I know if I ask dad, he'll drop whatever he's doing, so I'm going to make sure it's important.
Yeah.
But two, they need that safety of knowing that if they do, you'll be there.
Right. I mean, when you say your world revolves around your kids, if it's revolving around your kids, getting them to different sports and different things like that, that's a wrong world. Right. But if your world revolves around being there for them in a moment notice and stuff like that, then I want that world. That's the world they want.
Right.
They want to know that they can count and trust on us. And we tend to do the opposite of Proverbs, where it says train up a child in the way that they should go. We train up a child in the way that we think they should go.
Right.
If I was a hockey player, Tyler should have been a hockey player. So I did. I put on the skates when he was 3 and put him out on the ice and took him out 3 times. And third time he sat in the warming house. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, do I have to skate? I don't like this. And I was like, oh, no, my dream is demolished now. My son's not going to play hockey like his dad. And the same thing when it comes to directing them. We have a tendency to try to direct them in the manner that we want instead of discovering the direction that God's already implanted in them.
Right. And
that's but he became a golfer. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Cheerleader. That one was unexpected.
Right.
But so I think that's kind of the focus, is we have to be able to step out of protection mode from keeping them from doing what we're doing or have done, and finding and discovering, okay, what's the gifts and talents that God specifically gave my son, instead of me pushing mine on him to make him to be what I want him to be. And that could go weird, Right. It can make a kid be in a sport all through high school that he never wanted to be in a sport, but he's trying to impress his dad because his dad was in hockey. Right.
Yep.
And then, so when you're training them up, and I love what that guy said, because you don't want to fix the behavior, you want to fix what causes the behavior. And by taking the time to do that, you also begin to discover their futures. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
Their dreams, their goals,
who they are.
Right. And if we can be a parent like that, they're not going to look to the world to discover who they are. They're going to be able to step back. One of them, Carrie's and I's prayers have always been, when we raised our kids, and I think it kind of happens now, but what we prayed for our kids is, if they ever ran into a difficulty, that they go to God first. If they're married, their spouse second, but then they go to us third and ask for advice.
Right.
That was always our prayer. I think there's been a few times that's happened. I can't tell you how many times, but hopefully it will.
Right. And hopefully continue to, right? Yeah. After the idea is that they're not going to be kids forever.
Right.
And so you're trying to do things that will help them for more than when they're just 15 or 16, because this, again, a lot of this stuff is not a big deal. It's not the life-altering event that we think it is in the time. The important thing is the relationship.
Right.
The important thing is the person.
And
not what they're doing.
When you said this, Dennis, it really resonated with me now, just in all sorts of areas. But when you said what that guy said, which is, where do you want the relationship to be 3 weeks from now, mm-hmm. or a month from now? Just to be able to sit down with God and ask him that question. Okay, right. My son's struggling here. But God, where do I need to be in his life in a month? Mm-hmm. And how do I get there?
Right.
That's profound. Mm-hmm. Because we tend to focus on that problem and how we're going to fix it and what we got to do. And so just that thought alone, even in just regular life, mm-hmm. where do I want my life to be a month from now?
Right. My job.
Yep. Right. My career, my job. Where do I want my life? I mean, just that thought, because why? Because we have a tendency to focus on all the problems.
Right. Yeah. What's my checklist?
So
instead of where do you want to be?
That's a huge insight.
Your relationship with your spouse, your girlfriend, your job, like everything. If you can look at it that way, like, it changes. You're not just problem solving,
Actually,
your relationship building,
right,
which is such a healthier. It's healthier for us too, as parents, to not just be trying to problem solve everything, but trying to relationship build, because problem solving is exhausting, frankly, as a parent. I see so many parents that are just worn out because all they're doing is problem solving.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what's your relationship look like? How is that going? You know?
Because at the end, that's what matters.
Right.
Right. I just was saying, Carrie just texted me that exact same thing. She said, I just want to let you know that I'm planning to look ahead a month to see where we should be. And I'd ask, I want you to do it too. So it's just so funny.
She's super smart.
Yeah, she's super smart. So, but that's just so funny how that came up twice in the same day. But yeah.
Always something right there.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a couple of different, I think we're going to break this up into a couple of different fatherhood type of ideas. So hang in there, right? And come back next week and check it out. Go to the website, register for basic. If you have already been to a basic, then you know how great it is. So you should be recommending 2-3 people to go because you know what it's going to do to them.
Right, exactly.
So I'm talking to 2 guys right now that I'm trying to get to go. One of them's my dad.
Nice.
I'm trying to get him to go, and because we have got some nicer accommodations that we opened up this time.
Yeah.
So one of the problems that my dad had going to other basics is sleeping in a bunk. He's got some health issues, and it just would have been a problem. So opening up, we've got some things that guys can do if they want a little bit nicer sleeping accommodations. So that's off the table for people to complain about. It's in summer, so -10 is off the table. Right? Like we're giving you every opportunity to do this. So register for basic, join us Monday nights. I'll get that on the website and be back here again next week and
some more father stuff.
More father stuff. All right.